Hello everyone, my name is Leen and I'm the founder of LucidWeb. I'm going to be the host today. I'm going to host this XR for All webinar with the focus on mental health. The agenda of today is that I will briefly introduce XR for All and then as well research that we have been doing for the XR for All group actually already at the end of last summer, but I think is still relevant for the conversation we're going to have today. And after more like the data part, I'm going to invite as well Luciana as Gabriella, who are here today as our speakers as well, to introduce their own ventures in mental health. And then we'll conclude the session with a bit of an open discussion, and then as well we'll leave some 5 minutes for a Q&A from the audience. So definitely, if you're interested interested and want to learn more, there's definitely space at the end of this webinar. So in total it will be 60 minutes. So I'm going to share the slides that I have prepared, and then we'll take it from there. So let me know if you see the slides. So yes, first a bit about me. So I'm the founder of LucidWeb. So I'm actually myself CEO of a startup in XR. But since 2018, we are part of a consortium that drives XR for All initiative. So I will of course explain XR for All in a second. Apart from that, in 2016, I also started a nonprofit called Women in Immersive Tech Europe, which is a really growing group of inspirational women who are active in VR, AR, and MR, and not only entrepreneurs, but all the creative part of the industry, people working with XR with corporates. So it's quite an interesting group of women. So if you're a female founder, or if you're a female investor or working in the space, definitely join Women in Immersive Tech as well. So here today, I've invited Luciana and Gabriella. So maybe quickly, Luciana, a quick introduction, and the same for you then, Gabriella.
Yeah, thank you, Leen. It's a pleasure to be here, and wanted to thank you first of all for the invite, and also for the invite to join Women in Immersive Tech Europe. I'm actually Portugal's ambassador for WIT Europe. Previously, I had co-founded Women in VR AR in the UK about 2016. And that rapidly grew to over 500 members. We rebranded into Unfold Inclusion, which was all about powering underrepresented voices in the XR industry. So the way that I describe myself in a very elevator pitch way is I'm a community activist, catalyst, love and thrive on empowering others, bringing people together, particularly empowering those who would otherwise be underrepresented. I'm currently leading my baby, which is called Mindcheck, and it's a mental health tech platform at the moment, not in 3D. It's a 2D platform that's essentially a SaaS for B2B companies, particularly in the big industrial space, to support their employees through assessment and understanding of holistic mental health. I'm a STEM ambassador, do quite a lot of work around supporting especially women in tech, women in XR. I've been in the space since 2015, particularly in the UK space. I was one of the founding directors and a chief evangelist, which is a funny title, for the Reality Centre London. And our view was always to unite the industry, so bring together policymakers, investors, artists, corporates, startups, to really thrive and bridge collaboration within the immersive tech world. So yeah, that's me. Very passionate about innovation and purposeful applications of VR and AR and MR.
Thank you, Luciana. So Gabriella, quick introduction.
Wow, Right? I have to digest all this wonderful information that I heard about Luciana first. But Leen, it's a pleasure to be here and sharing this moment with both of you. And a quick introduction is I'm a Latina. I talk too much, So if I just like, I go around the bush, just say gaps, concentrate. Okay, so my name is Gabriella Chihan Stanley, aka Gaps. I'm the co-founder of Frisch, that is an immersive media agency from Vienna, Austria. And I'm also the co-founder of XR Vienna, which is Vienna's first, biggest, and funniest XR community for XR professionals and enthusiasts. We are very lucky with both Frisch and XR Vienna. Like, these are both my babies, because especially with XR Vienna, we have done a lot of community work. Like, we started out with 24 people who we didn't know one another from anything. We were just very curious about who was doing what back then, and to find ways to support one another back in 2015. So, well, 5 years later and 1,100 and something members later, we are very honored to be where we are today when it comes to the community. So I also share this passion with you, Luciana, about the community, because 3/4 of who I am today comes from the community support. And of course, I'm an active member from Women in Immersive Tech as well. That has helped me so much in developing my career as well, because I, first and foremost, besides all my titles, I'm a mom. I've been a mother for 4 years now, and this is, yeah, it's a long story, but to make long story short, I founded the company at the same time I found out I was pregnant. So it's been a nice ride so far, very
I
exciting.
would say, I always say, that is the most important job of all. So
It is. It is. Thank you so much. It's really getting to know whole new levels of multitasking and zen modes at the same time. So it's good mental training, and also it's, I'm a productivity tool in two legs. It's that's that's the description that I can give. But going back to the topic of mental health and mental well-being, which is the reason why we're here. Through Frisch, we are working in three projects, healthcare related projects. One of them is we're developing together with a medical startup called XR Synergies, and we're working in a series of experiences for doctor-patient communication. This is one of our projects. The second one is called Frisch Luft, like fresh air, and it's a getaway outdoor experience with full physical activity at the user space, designed for seniors and people with reduced mobility.
Okay.
And this is another one of our freshly born babies that we are developing now. And of course, there's Here VR. That is the reason why we are here. But I imagine that we're going to talk in more details afterwards about this, or shall I give an intro? Okay, we're going to talk about this in later.
Yes, I will first introduce a bit the XR4 project and data, and then we go into your both your projects in more detail. So give me a second.
Super.
So yes, I'm going to introduce XR for all first. So some of you might have seen our previous webinars. We've done one on 3D tools, one on gaming, and basically the last one was on gaming, was kind of in April. And at that point in time, gaming, of course, the pandemic was already happening. And gaming, of course, at that point was also quite on topic, basically. But we did decide, based on the previous one, that we wanted to dedicate this webinar also to, yes, a need that basically was increasingly surfaced because of the pandemic. So that's why it's also one of the reasons why we shifted our original plan on the level of topics to come to mental health. But XR for All, just on a higher level, it's a project funded by the European Commission on the Horizon 2020. The original objective to set up a project of 33 months was to really bring light on a couple of problems facing the European industry. In fact, of course, well known. It's quite fragmented, and there's a strong competition coming from other regions in the world. The investment culture is quite risk averse, and definitely a couple of years ago and still today, we'll see that VR and AR for many investors is quite unknown territory. At that point in time, there were a lot of research initiatives, but there was no common research agenda. A weak link between research and market, and a lack of industry knowledge. So XR for All focuses on a couple of key areas responding to those issues. There's a very strong community element. We also provide a solutions catalog that will soon become available on the XR for All website. There has been a continuously announcement of an open call, and actually a couple of weeks ago we announced the winners of the first cohort. There's a research agenda that is being worked on, and there's also deliverables available on the website related to research, a map of funding sources for XR technologies, and then in general, I think you might have noticed that we're quite active on Twitter and Facebook. We try to give a lot of visibility to startups at different stages of the startup life cycle, to give them more visibility, to increase their chances of having access to capital and in general commercial opportunities. We're not driving XR for All on our own. It's a consortium of partners, Europe Unlimited, Stereopsia, Becom, Fraunhofer, and then ourselves. An important resource that you find on our website, but we included a QR code just for you to have a direct access. So we did a large-scale research, and the result of that we built a comprehensive list of more than 600 investors who have already invested in European XR startups. So again, different startup life stages. But I think it's an interesting resource. If you look, for example, if you're active in media entertainment, you see in seed stage who are the investors that you can approach to pitch your idea. The research that we've done last summer is in collaboration with Dealroom. I'm not going to go into the main highlights. These are available on the XR for All website, but maybe quickly in terms of funding, the top countries in Europe in XR until 2019, 22nd was United Kingdom, Sweden, France, Germany, and Spain. And if we look at verticals, and maybe relevant for today, then we see that healthcare is in the top 5 of verticals that received relatively most funding, and also in terms of number of deals. Exits, not going to go into detail, as well as the categories, the most popular category in terms of funding, but also in terms of the size of amount has been 3D tools for Europe. For healthcare, you see that there are relatively a lot of rounds happening in Europe, but the overall amount of investments is still relatively low. For healthcare, the research concludes focuses on 5 different areas. The area that we're going to highlight today is mental health care. Of course, there are other startups focusing on other parts, for example, process optimization with companies like the Body VR, education training with medical realities, dual good health, touch surgery, physical healthcare with companies like OnComfort, who recently raised funding, or immersive therapy, Dr. Kinetic, patient empowerment with companies like Immersion, VR, Peekaboo, and Relax Mind, and then mental health care, which I'm going to, of course, clarify in a second. In terms of money available for these startups, we see that the biggest part of announced funding rounds are smaller than 2 million, which is basically in line with the overall investment landscape in Europe across verticals. If you look at the type of investors focusing on healthcare, we see that the Horizon 2020 SME instrument is based upon, of course, the data that we have. The most popular funding tool. And then apart from that, it's Eurostars, again from the European Commission, and then a couple of other investors who are based in Europe or outside of Europe, like Y Combinator. I just wanted to highlight this slide. So if we look at the amount of funding and the highest funding available in healthcare, we see that SIAS is a leading startup with a funding of 10 million. And SIAS basically is based in Barcelona and actually is focused on psychology and mental health. The next one, focused on mental health with relatively high funding, is Oxford VR. It's a spin-out from the Oxford University, built on the work of Professor Daniel Freeman, who has been developing effective VR-based mental health treatments for 15 years. Their focus is developing clinically validated, cost-effective, user-centered treatments for clinical conditions with significant impact on patients, the health system, and the wider economy. And then last but not least, we have Mimers, based in Stockholm, Sweden. They're a so-called virtual pharmacy. They provide a virtual reality platform for evidence-based apps that can improve, manage, and treat the minds of millions. So far, the introduction of XR for All and as well the data. Again, as a reminder, of course, this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel tomorrow for you to cross-check, but all the sources are also available on the XR for All website. So without further ado, I invite you, Luciana, to basically present Mindcheck. I will be controlling the slides, so let me know if I have to move to the next slide.
All right, thank you. So like I said, this is my baby. Mindcheck essentially started as mine and my co-founders lived experience of poor mental health, of anxiety and clinical depression. Since we were in our, I was 17, he was in his early 20s. And we both, with a background in tech and building tech solutions, sort of came together to, with the goal to improve accessibility, if you will, to holistic mental health care. So I've included a little bit of a deep dive. I think if you go to the next one, Leen, on this is, I've already covered myself. So there's me. And like I said, I wear many different hats. One thing that I failed to mention, which is very important to particularly mental health care, is to have a macro level approach on a policy level. So as well as the work that I do for inclusive communities, I am an ambassador for the European Digital Society, which is a pan-European think tank, where we're focused on education, inclusion, and innovation when it comes to tech. So we're actually looking at potentially bringing XR solution that looks at battling bias and stereotypes within workplaces and including that within an enterprise mental health model. But more on that. And I'm also on the board of VRAR Association Portugal. If we go on the next one. So Mindcheck essentially started as an assessment tool, as digitizing what existed as an open source industry validated tool that is called DAS, and it looks at your levels of depression, anxiety, and stress separately. My co-founder started it as a passion project, put it online in January 2019. Within 6 months and with very minimum investment, $5 Australian a day to be exact, for a few months, which is €3. We had, when I joined the project, we were at about more than 8,000 people a month coming to the website, which is essentially a web app, as we wanted to reduce friction in all levels and not just and not create another app or another tool. The idea was really to build something that would exist in the middle of that spectrum that you go from wellness, well-being, and if we look at both the XR and the 2D apps world. There's quite a lot of meditation apps, things that look at improving well-being, but more on a less clinically validated route. Whereas if we look at on the SciS and specifically Oxford VR, that are looking at, you know, persecutory delusions, mental illness, and telemedicine tools, things that are more around the diagnosis and treatment of mental illness. Obviously, that's a whole different playing field. But what we wanted to do with Mindcheck is essentially be almost like the signpost, if you will, broker, where it would be kind of your first step into understanding and particularly looking at users that aren't that sort of know that they're suffering from quite a lot of stress, anxiety, and we're focusing on those to begin with, and not any other form of recognizable mental illness, but are suffering quite a lot, even within the workplace. You know, stress and anxiety have become business as usual, but they're not ready to speak to someone straight away. So we've built on the DAS and the really interesting and quite cool, if I may say, I'm a bit biased, but the cool aspect is with the help of psychologists, psychiatrists, part of our lived experience also in building something that we thought would be valuable for us. We and you know and for others, it was really important for us to build on the quantitative elements that give you in a traffic light system. This is your levels of stress and anxiety and depression separately, but really try to empower people to better understand not just, you know, the what's going on from a quantitative level, but from a qualitative level, what is causing that. So we developed a test that looks at 55 data points from snapshot of lifestyle for the past week and take into account, and this is all self-reported, so we really wanted to empower users to share as much data as they like, because we come from that, you know, data privacy and trust is key, especially when it comes to mental health. But really, to, you know, in summary, it was based on those 55 data points that range from exercise, sleep, your connection with work, your connection with nature, quality of social relationships, your over-reliance on social media, which is a big thing these days, and screens, but you know, history of mental illness in the families, of genetic issues, traumatic head injury, substance use. It's really trying to build a holistic picture. We've identified the 12 most common risk factors to stress, anxiety, and depression, and off the back of that, we build essentially empower you to better understand from a science-backed way what is the relationship between, you know, exercise and sleep and mental health, your gut and mental health, and give you recommendations of what you can do. We're a social enterprise, so, and registered in Australia, as my team's in Australia, and we're focusing mainly on Australia, Europe, and the UK to start with. But essentially, we also wanted to change and invert kind of the business model on its head. So we're impact driven and obviously growth and profit driven. So our model looks at empowering users anywhere, everywhere to get access to these sorts of insights by building a product that's a dashboard for companies to automate these services in a scalable way for companies as big as, you know, 10,000 users, and get those insights based on aggregated non-identifiable data for their employees. That's a very quick snapshot. There's obviously quite a lot to unpack, but we do that. We have it's a subscription model. Essentially, the idea is to build on EAPs that don't really work, but also we're targeting a very niche industry, because the market as not just the XR market, but you know, the mental health tech space is very saturated, especially post-COVID. And we wanted to focus on, like, my drive is always to empower underserved populations and industries. And we looked at the construction, manufacturing, sort of blue-collar worker industries as an industry that's been somewhat left behind. So we're working with the primarily construction and manufacturing right now, and finding and especially looking at identifying those risk factors, particularly the ones that relate to suicide. And I think I have a couple more slides on, and by all means, I can share my contact. So if anyone wants to further has any questions about Mindcheck or wants to know more, I'm very approachable. And just generally, I think in speaking to Leen had an incredible presentation on the space and particularly funding. But I'd like to just say a few things about. I came into VR as primarily because of the work that I was seeing at UCL, at Stanford's Human Virtual Interaction Lab, at Oxford, in the application within academia of VR, which has been happening since the 80s around phobias and post-traumatic stress disorder. But it's a truly a powerful and transformational tool to be able to place someone with a history of mental health, mental illness in a safe and controlled environment, and be able to talk, not just talk through triggers, but literally experience it. And we all know that when you experience something spatially, you tend to retain that information. So in effect, the quickest way of describing it is you can essentially hack someone's brain and rebuild neural pathways, which for me, as having lived through the mental health for decades, it was incredibly transformational. I think so. In the next slide, I basically try to outline this when I talk about XR and mental health, in trying to give sort of the history. And like I said, from the 80s and the 90s, it started being used primarily in the military around PTSD and trauma, and with companies and startups and immersive labs like UCL's, Imperial's, MIT. There are quite a lot of, on a project basis, looking at social anxiety, so anxiety disorders, addiction also, so more in the psychiatric realm, and looking at phobias and exposure, and all that through exposure therapy, which is fantastic. And like I said, the ability of putting someone in an immersive space and being able to expose them to their triggers, to their phobias, to someone who has social anxiety that can go into a recreated virtual underground and be able to see the virtual avatars are all staring at them. And then, the researcher can, in 1 second, as we all know, manipulate the environment. So all the people on the tube are looking down at their phones or up in the ceiling. And actually, this is, you're able to essentially be able to explain to the patient how this is how you see the world, this is how the world actually is, and do that enough so it translates directly into their real lives. And it's been interesting with the shift within behavioral digital health and wellness in the 2010s. We've seen so many different applications around both exercise, which is massive, and that can go from Beat Saber to any other tool, Box VR, very, very good for your mental health, into things like so many different mindfulness tools. Perfect Beach, I think, is one where you can transport yourself to tranquil environments and meditate, and different tools like Helium XR that's been used in the workplace. So VR tools specifically designed for stress and anxiety. It's a fantastic space, and I think the more that we see, the growth of both mental health and immersive, the more that we're going to see incredible kind of exponential results off the back of it. And I think the last slide, basically skip result, which I don't know if many people here know, but this quote basically signifies that yes, like I said, it's an exponential reach, but yes, it's not a magic bullet. And I always like to bring to attention that there's quite a lot of ethical regulations, not regulations yet, I mean ethical implications and considerations that we must always have in mind, because it's got, of course, it's got the power to make a dramatic impact, but it must be done, and it's important to highlight the importance of being science-backed and clinically validated, particularly when it comes to the patient's mental world. And in the next slide, this basically is obviously non-exhaustive, but building on what Leen presented around the funding landscape, we see this spectrum that I was talking about within wellness and well-being on one side, and that covers many different applications that touch upon guided meditations all the way through to Virtual Leap, which is which actually does have a background in clinical validation, but it's more around cognitive enhancement tools as opposed to psychiatric illnesses. Then you've got more the all enhancing mental health, XR Health in the US as a massive player, SciS in Barcelona, Oxford VR, and what I think is super interesting, and I would like to give a call to action, is for more cross-industry pollination and collaboration between academia, startups, and corporates, and potentially governments, because there's so much. There was a lot of incredible projects going on in the past few years, but quite a lot of them, suffered from a lack of funding. So yeah, I think that was it. There's so much. I have to be aware of time because I can go on forever about this topic. Literally, my two favorite things in the world: mental health and XR.
Thank you. It was super interesting. I've also reached out to you because of this slide. We were at another panel together, Luciana and I, and she presented this slide, and I was like, okay, this really helps because yes, it's mental health is also, although it's a part of healthcare, it's still a very covers a broad spectrum. So yes, I think it's very interesting. And I also had a call with Gabriella before to check where she would be on the spectrum. So before you confirm, maybe Gabriella, you can go on and introduce yourself and as well your idea.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm so happy to hear about your project, Luciana, because I'm kind of like in the very beginning of my project, so it's very encouraging for me to hear how far you've come and how great of an impact you're doing through your work. It's the same. I will use a biblical example, no? That is like I feel like the woman with a raft, next to Noah. I mean, I feel very empowered by hearing you. It really gives me a lot of hope, But
likewise.
Anyway, thank you. No, but that being said, I would like to talk a bit about my background first, for all of you to understand what I'm doing here in an event of XR mental health, right? So as I said before, we started with vrisch. Like my husband and I co-founded the company. Actually, we were working together in Barcelona, out of all places. Now hearing about SciS is so exciting because we were so close to the source to get to know people. But anyway, so what we are doing since 2015 is we are helping innovation leaders from across industries to improve their communication with their audience using immersive technology, using immersive entertainment as a tool to minimize distraction and maximize engagement with their audience. So we love this topic of communication because same as XR, is very versatile. Like one can apply communication and entertainment to pretty much anything in order to achieve better results. This is our philosophy. And with the evolution of our work, because of course we were starting out, we were one of the first production companies back then in Vienna, dedicated exclusively to the production of XR experiences. So we were growing together with the technology, actually. I mean, it was very exciting because it was a no woman's land back then, right? So it was quite exciting to make the rules as we went, right? But then slowly our road was narrowing down, and we had the extreme luck to work together with really amazing people from the healthcare industry, which is one of these projects that I was mentioning before, that we are working together with the medical startup XR Synergies to, I can't say too much about the project because we have to launch it very soon. But it's about improving communication and safety by improving communication between doctors and patients. It's about this. So there's a lot to do in this regard, and we're very excited to work in this field. Then of course there is Frisch Luft, that both Frisch Luft and Here We Are. I'm about to finish my introduction. This is why I'm not using slides, because I was with the slides, I'm like, I lose my mind, you know? Pun intended, no? But okay, so anyway, so with Frisch Luft, we wanted to combine the aspect, like you said, Luciana, about the physical activity in mental health. So, and we also wanted to reach like people who are currently now in COVID circumstances, the most isolated ones, right? I mean, like a senior or a person with reduced mobility can't really go outside as much as, you know, as much as they want to. So we wanted to give this getaway experience for them to be able to experience the outdoors. And it's also an experience that moves at their pace. So the pace is not imposed by them, it's them imposing the pace to the experience. So the third project, which is my dearest baby at the moment, is Here We Are. So for this project, we are working together. We're getting professional advice from the Phobia Treatment Center, Phobius, in Vienna. So they are making the professional aspect of the project when it comes to mental health, because we wouldn't dare, just coming from the entertainment industry, to just say, we hold the truth of how to make a mental well-being tool. I mean, as you said, Luciana, the cross-pollination is very important to achieve higher results, right? So with that being said, Here We Are is an immersive experience currently being developed, as I said, with Phobius. And it's meant to help people to cope with the rising anxieties born with self-isolation. This is very specific. It's for treating self-isolation cases. And it's, what are we doing with this? We are using a distraction-free simulation of loneliness with limited time through exposure therapy. This is a concept behind the tool itself. So this was born out of our wish to help people to have access to a quick, cost-effective, and flexible self-help tool. I mean, we want to reach as many people as possible, and we wanted in a way to be like the bridge between professionals such as yourselves, and also like let's say what you would find in a store, in an Oculus store, let's say, or in a VR store. I mean, we wanted people to, for example, sometimes there's still a lot of stigma associated with mental health, and a lot of people are ashamed to admit it to themselves or to others that they need help. So in a way, they would be able to use this tool in the privacy and comfort of their own couch and really assess for themselves, okay, is this enough for me? Do I need further therapy or not? Or what is happening with me, right? I mean, it's to make a first assessment, like you said, Luciana. I mean, you also have this first stage of your project that is also assessing, right? I mean, am I going through something? Am I not going through something? And also something that we consider very important about this solution is that we would like to give the control to the user to determine the amount of time that this user is going to be exposed to this experience. So in a way, we're not imposing a time. We are dividing the experience in two parts. The first part is a short story in which users are the protagonists of this story. And the function of this story is to use entertainment to lower the guard, let's say, and to make users be exposed to what they're feeling, right? I mean, to acknowledge that the feeling of loneliness, to acknowledge anxiety. I don't want to make a spoiler alert, and this is why I'm not telling why, but it's a short story. the first part. And the second part is where the exposure therapy aspect of the project comes from, because the user will be able to set a fixed time that they feel ready to be interacting with this app. And the goal of this section is to give the user tools like physical and mental exercises to be able to cope with this situation on an emergency basis, right? I mean, it's like, as I said, I mean, we want to work as the emergency tool, right? I mean, because right now we are either not able to visit a mental health practitioner, or we are flooded with other things and we bottle up this feeling inside. So we see entertainment as a channel to be able to offer this to people, to say, you have help, you have people that can help you out with this, and through a little bit of a story. No? So our team for this project is a funny mix, no, of talents that is from, of course, Phobius, the team at Phobius, which is helping with all the research and the therapy part of the project. We also have the best of two worlds when it comes to our agency. That is, we have software developers, we have architects, we have, of course, Axel and I come from digital arts and filmmaking. So we kind of made a really nice and healthy salad of elements to be able to put our talent into a productive and good use to help other people, right? So as I said, I won't get tired of repeating this over and over again. Like, we wouldn't like to, I mean, our goal is not to get rid of professional help, not at all. But it's the opposite, actually, is to pave the way for people to dare to do this, right? And also very important to identify the stage in which they're in. There's some functionalities that I can already share with you that, for example, users would have to be in a certain state of calmness for the exercise to continue. And if they're not, then the experience will prompt them to say out loud what they're experiencing at this moment. So sometimes only just saying it out loud makes a huge difference, right? I mean, just admitting it to yourself sometimes is the best medicine. So as I said, we are starting, we are in a very initial state on this, and we got really, really lucky to have received initial funding for developing the idea further by the Vienna Business Agency. And so this gave us a lot of hope, especially in uncertain times like it is right now. And we can't wait to do more for this project. And we're actually searching for collaborators that are interested in contributing to this project. Yay! Because I say this in the most humble way. Like, we are very motivated to do this, especially after the funding opportunity that we got, that gave us the opportunity to invest time in the development of this tool. We want to help people out for two reasons. I mean, first of all, because this is the time that we have to help each other out in order to move the world forward. And also, through helping others, we're also helping ourselves in the process. And with that being said, I will share my contacts, as you said, Luciana, with everybody that is interested in extending this conversation about Here We Are or any of the other projects that we're doing. And with this, I'm done. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Can I just add, and I think it's so, I can see so many opportunities for us to collaborate and overlaps in the sense that, you know, what you're building for loneliness, we actually have that as a main, one of the 12 contributing factors. That it's one of the biggest in the world, and even pre-COVID. in terms of driving poor mental health, and uh, and and it's fantastic that you're using entertainment as a way of disarming people and getting them to engage. And particularly, you're exactly right. There's still, as much as COVID has helped to destigmatize mental health and get people to understand that everyone has mental health. It's not, mental health does not equate to mental illness, which is very important. But there's still so much to be done. And I usually say mental health has a PR problem. It's just not. You look for a mental health stock image, and it's just people with their hands down, and it's mental illness. So actually twisting it in a way that is fun, that it's that you take it as edutainment in how you're learning about your mental health, and learning how to deal with isolation, with loneliness, with thoughts. We all have kind of anxious thoughts at some point in our lives, and it's a beautiful tool. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Follow up from.
It means a lot. And we will keep in touch, right?
Definitely.
Thank you very much, both of you, already for sharing your businesses, and as well what drove you to set up these initiatives. So the XR for All initiative is also there to give, and a lot of attendees here in the Zoom call or the Zoom webinar are here to understand also a bit more about your access to capital, access to finding the right people in your team. So maybe Luciana, maybe can you share some insights? And did you already raise funding? Do you already have a team? How do you meet the team? A bit more practical.
Yeah, practical tools. No, I love it. So our journey has been mainly, started as a passion project for about 6 months, and then myself and my co-founder realized the potential. It was a slightly different idea at the start, and we've pivoted since. But both of us had a little bit of from our previous roles. A few months, let's say, where we could bootstrap, and that's been our main goal, is getting to a point where we are right now, where we've actually identified a particular niche. We have a very clear value proposition. We have a clear MVP, so it's not being fully developed, but it's an MVP, which works for all intents and purposes, and a product market fit with a particular industry. So we have the business model, everything's now validated, and we're starting to fundraise for a seed round. We're going through Berlin's Founder Institute's cohort at the moment, looking at a couple of different. So since we're very practically as an advice, I would always say, if you can, extend your runway as much as possible. Make sure that you have ownership of your project / company for as long as you can, and get to a position where you have advantage in terms of speaking to particularly VCs and angel investors and external investors. There's quite a lot of creative access to capital. So we've been looking at Horizon 2020 grants, and looking at different European Union, particularly instruments. We had at the very beginning the honor of winning a competition in Australia for social enterprises. So we went through that competition, got a little bit of support. But overall, it's been very lean. So for the past year, both of us have built it. Our team is four of us. So it's myself, my co-founder, full-time. And at the moment, both of us have worn all of the hats. And I've become the amateur designer, the partnerships, the marketing, the operations to a certain extent. He's CEO, strategy, the coder behind it. So we're really kind of trying to build it and between ourselves as much as we can. We have our third co-founder, that's our CTO, and he's part-time at the moment because he has a family. And we have our fourth. We've had about ongoing about four kind of on an advisory basis, but one who's contributing quite a lot actually on a volunteer basis, but actually something that we want to pilot, which is slightly different. It could be really interesting maybe for some people, but it's a ownership contribution model. So we want to build a company where obviously we've got, we're majority shareholders, but the idea is that we're building a family of people behind a mission that want to create real lasting change. So actually, we've got this model that accounts for actionable output that someone contributes to Mindcheck, and we're recording that. And once we raise a round, that's going to vest into equity. So we're really playing around with particularly impact models of investment because we're socially driven also. There's quite a lot, in the space. Obviously, XR for all is something that we would definitely do if we had the XR element. There's quite a lot of different instruments that you can make hold of, and different ways in which you can finance and extend your runway, depending on the time. So I think this gives a kind of broader level overview. I would say typically if you can make, especially in the EU, where we're looking at quite a lot of different government grants in Germany that are equity free. So you can have access of upwards of 70k euros, completely equity free.
Can I ask, because you're based in Portugal, but you're referencing Berlin, is there a link between Germany and Portugal?
There is. So I'm currently in Lisbon, but I'm moving to Berlin in November. I've been sort of existing for personal reasons between my partners in Berlin, and I've been kind of in between Berlin and Lisbon, and there is a massive growing mental health ecosystem there, and health tech ecosystem. There's an early stage incubator called the Vision Health Pioneers, which starts in January. It's in a 9-month program. So for those of you that are in health tech, it starts in January, and it's essentially about 2k euros net from the Berlin's government that is equity free, and you're essentially incubated for 9 months. And I have partnerships with Charité and the different institutions to make sure that you have you're equipped to run clinical trials. So and you've got mentors that are dedicated to healthcare, because it is a particularly different industry vertical when it comes to general tech. There are specific regulations when it comes to privacy, GDPR, ethical regulations when you're building a health tech product. So
okay, I'm a bit conscious of time. We have another 5 minutes. So for the people who are watching the webinar, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. There's already one question coming in, but I want to ask Gabriella first. So you already mentioned that you're working together with Phobios, and that it has been funded. Was it you guys reaching out to Phobios, or was Phobios reaching out to you? How did you meet, basically?
Actually, it's a very beautiful story, because we met at XR Vienna, at our local XR community. Okay. I mean, both the XR Vienna was the greatest gift that I could have asked for my life, for my professional life, because I met all of my team members. I met them there. And I also met Johannes from Phobios. I met him there. He's a former speaker of XR Vienna. And we were informally talking during, after his talk, and I was like, so what do you do? And I treat this and this phobias. I was like, that's very interesting. No, I didn't tell him back then that we were venturing in the mental well-being area, but I kept it in the back of my mind. No, so when we actually started with this project, I said, okay, but we know the people from Phobios, let's contact them. So everything was a bit like, let's say, organically formed. We are quite blessed, let's say, that through the community we were like getting the people that we needed for this initial part of the project. So they were advising us into the right kind of content that we should have. They were advising us into how we can proceed in a safe way, which is very important, as Luciana said. And this is how we met Phobius. And well, actually, yeah, we also met the rest of the team there, like who is vrisch now. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, yes, definitely. And of course, you're in your own production studio. How much of your time will you be spending on VR here compared to your other responsibilities?
Well, actually, we're really flexible for that, because our aim right now is to aim at developing here VR and Frischluft, because this is where our heart is, right? I mean, as I mentioned before, like when in our beginnings, we were a bit of an everything shop. I mean, it sounds worse than it is, because we had a lot of fun doing what we did, and we still do, right? But right now, we feel like our expertise is matured enough to take our approach more on a product and instead of client-based or project-based. So I'm really looking forward. This is why I'm really looking forward. If I could choose, if I can speak from the heart, I wish I could dedicate 100% of my time in here VR, right? Because this is, it is like, I feel like, you know, like Supergirl, you know, like I want to do something with a social good. And this is actually our try to get into that.
Yeah. I want to mention what has been asked. So someone is asking Gabriella specifically, what kind of collaborations are you looking for?
Okay, well, initially, because as I said, like we are getting the advice from Phobius for the time being, but we're very interested in getting a collaboration with research institutions, for example, or with companies who would like to merge what they're doing together with us. You know, I mean, like we want to develop our product in a way that could be used either as a standalone or as an add-on for example, for Mindcheck, what you said, Luciana, you know, like if we can contribute to a bigger cause, the bigger the better, right? I mean, this is like the more the merrier is what I wanted to say, not the bigger the better. And of course, I mean, we would like to have more collaborators on the research basis or on mental health professionals that can guide us into to fine tune the project in a way that is safe, in a way, because the engagement part, we have it, like with audio modesty. I mean, this is something we thrive on storytelling, and we thrive on entertainment and interaction, but we want to do something responsibly, which we are already doing. But the more creative minds and the more scientific minds we have involved in the project, we feel like we're making a safer product for our audience.
Thank you. Maybe I see it's the last minute, so maybe we'll end with your personal piece of advice to starting XR entrepreneurs in Europe. So it doesn't not necessarily need to be in mental health, just in general VR and AR. What would be your piece of advice?
Okay, well, I'm a bit biased because of XR Vienna, right? But I would say point number one, the first thing to do is get in touch with your local XR community. I mean, sometimes the answer is it's right in front of you, and the same goes with global communities. I mean, what Women in Immersive Tech did for me, for example, this was the introduction for me to know that there are, especially when there are other women out there doing amazing things. Right? I mean, this is something that is so important for us to put ourselves in a great context to see that we are not alone. And this is, of course, we should find, this is my opinion, no? That we should also aim at quality instead of quantity, right? So I advise people to have like a handful of options where they get their information from their community, and really be engaged in this, like really participate on this, and give your input without being afraid of failure. Because if we are too afraid to mess it up, we're always going to play safe, and we're in an innovation business after all, right? I mean, we can't play safe all the time, of course, with responsible blood in our veins, right? I mean, but simply put, no pain, no gain, no?
Definitely good advice. Luciana?
Yeah, I would echo that 100%. I think community is where we've all found so many incredible, extraordinary things that we wouldn't have found otherwise. From people to ideas to collaborations to creativity to inspiration. So I would say absolutely reach out. And it's something actually I told a mentee last week who was starting out within health tech and was felt a lot of imposter syndrome, which I think is something that women in particular suffer from, and I would venture to say for all women, men, non-binary individuals, to not be afraid to reach out to someone that you would feel a little bit, I don't know, intimidated by, but actually reach out. Go out there, like Gabriella said. Don't be afraid if your idea is not perfect, if your thing's not perfect, if you're afraid of saying the wrong things. Just go out there and do it, and you'll be surprised by the reception, by the amount of people that want to help you. And we can end it at that. I know that
Yes, I think it's the best ending for this webinar. I want to thank you again, both of you, for making the time to speak about your businesses today. I want to advise everyone to join XR for All, the members. There's a whole community as well to reach out to. Of course, as well, Women in Immersive Tech. It's a Facebook group, so also, yeah, if you're curious, just join. And this webinar, like the previous ones, will be available on the YouTube channel, and also the slides that have been presented today. So thank you again. And the next webinar will be likely in November, but again, we'll confirm it on the XR for All social channels. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
So much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.